It's a trial that has gripped the world, and it ended tonight with a startling denouement. He may have lost in London, but a US court has just handed Johnny Depp a clear victory in his libel action against his former wife, Amber Heard.
Question: the statement was false. Answer: yes. Question: the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp. Answer: yes.
It is a result with far-reaching implications for Depp himself, for Heard, and some argue for the Me Too movement itself.
Content is being created, shared, amplified that is really reinforcing harmful attitudes, gender stereotypes and myths and other stereotypes around rape, sexual violence.
Also on a packed News at 10 tonight. Forgiveness for Prince Andrew. The lawyer for many of Epstein's victims explains why that is going to be a very tall order. Popular support for the monarchy has dropped 10% in a decade, according to a new poll, but tell that to the millions preparing to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Another 150 flights are cancelled, mostly by BA, so is there any end to the chaos in sight? And
this is ITV News at 10 with Tom Bradby.
good evening. In a court case where one trashed the reputation of the other in front of the television cameras and ultimately the world, neither was ever going to emerge as a winner. But film superstar Johnny Depp certainly came out best in his libel trial against his ex-wife Amber Heard. He won his case and $10 million from her. She got $2 million from him, or his lawyer, who called her abuse allegations a hoax. Johnny Depp said he felt truly humbled by the verdict. A new chapter has finally begun. For him, he meant, but he could equally, perhaps, have meant for the Me Too movement.
After 2 days of weighing bitter evidence of a disastrous marriage, a jury in Virginia delivered its verdict.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer: yes.
Amber Heard listened quietly as the court upheld Johnny Depp's libel action against her, finding her claim that he had violently assaulted her baseless.
Yes.
This is a song for Miss Hattie Lamar.
Her ex-husband was not in court. His rock band is touring the UK this week.
Love you, Johnny!
A fan captured him outside a bar in Newcastle this afternoon.
I love you, bro. I love you, bro. I love you. We were honored, truly honored, to assist Mr. Depp in ensuring that his case was fairly considered throughout the trial. We are also most pleased that the trial has resonated for so many people in the public who value truth and justice. Now that the jury has reached its conclusive verdict, it's time to turn the page and look to the future.
This was a case coated in Hollywood stardust, but underneath the glitter, there was grim testimony, where a former husband and wife sat a few feet apart, accusing each other of terrible things.
He'd smash things around me, then he would smash things very close to me, and then he would just hit me. And it started with slapping, and it got to be like repetitive slaps where he'd hold me in a position and slap me multiple times.
The jury was played recordings of the couple's arguments.
You want to see crazy? I'll give you crazy.
Amber Heard said her husband's rage was fueled by alcohol and drug abuse.
You're crazy.
Have you drunk this whole thing this morning?
Oh, you got this going. You got this going.
I didn't want to do this.
And she wept as she made further allegations of sexual assault.
He thought he was punching me.
Johnny Depp brought this libel action because he said his ex-wife's claims were baseless.
Yesterday, I've never struck Miss Heard. I've never struck a woman in my life.
He told the court that there was indeed violent abuse in their home, but that he was the victim and she the abuser.
Suddenly, I'm just getting clobbered from behind, and one's natural primal instinct is to kind of duck and cover.
Every day of the hearing, a crowd of Depp fans would cheer his car into court. Online, support for him multiplied. The hashtag Justice for Johnny was all too often followed by hateful abuse of his ex-wife. She left court today having issued a written statement saying she was heartbroken that a mountain of evidence was not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power of her ex-husband.
How do you feel, Amber?
It was the last act in a case which, despite its terrible testimony, has kept a TV and online audience of millions entertained.
Well, Johnny Depp clearly plans to get back to work. The best is yet to come, he said tonight. But movie insiders doubt he will ever have the same level of success again. The industry may, of course, be even harder on Amber Heard. But it isn't just their careers that have suffered collateral damage in the legal and personal feud. The momentum of the Me Too campaign may have suffered too.
There was a time when Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were the industry's it couple. But the Hollywood honeymoon didn't last long. Their red carpet smiles a sharp contrast with the courtroom scowls, as the most intimate details became a breeding ground for Depp versus Heard content, many reposting, re-editing and recreating each day's court proceedings.
I think in terms of the trial, it's been a social media circus of commentary from creators and influencers and lay people. I think that the truth was lost on social media quite some time ago.
The Justice for Johnny hashtag has been used in countless videos, garnering billions of views. And given the allegations of domestic violence made against him, some campaigners feel the trial may have undone the work of recent feminist movements.
Many young people and children are accessing a lot of these platforms where content is being created, shared, amplified, that is really reinforcing harmful attitudes, gender stereotypes and myths and other stereotypes around rape, sexual violence and all forms of violence against women and girls.
Johnny Depp and Amber Heard have both seen their acting careers suffer as a result of putting their personal life into the public eye. And while Depp's music career continues, the pair's future on the big screen seems uncertain.
Can they continue to have careers? Sure. But the challenge for people like this is, especially with Depp, his career has been so spectacularly successful that any suggestion or expectation that he can return to what he was at his height is really problematic.
So as the case closes and the damages awarded are in the millions, it's society that could be left counting the cost. Rishi Davda, News at 10.
Well, Geraint is outside the court in Fairfax, Virginia. So, Geraint, look, this was an extraordinary case followed by millions, if not billions, all over the world. But what do you think the impact of it will be ultimately beyond the courtroom?
Well, I think what's going to happen immediately is there's going to be a debate about the wisdom of the judge's decision to put this hearing on television. This was a case concerned with domestic violence and sexual assault. And yet it was served up as entertainment on the court TV channels which exist here in the United States and, of course, on social media, where the testimony was clipped up and replayed again and again and people commented on it. So what was a serious legal proceeding ceased to be as such in a sense, and it became a kind of celebrity contest, a star power contest, which Johnny Depp won hands down. He has remained the face of Dior perfume throughout all this. He's now selling to sell-out crowds in the UK with that rock band. Amber Heard, meanwhile, has been subject to the most appalling abuse on social media. Now, a jury has reached a decision here. It has ruled. Justice has been done. But you're left wondering what the effect of the circus around this case is going to be on actual victims of domestic violence who are now wondering whether or not they should come forward and should speak up.
Okay, Geraint, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's move on to a totally unrelated story now, but with, you could argue, a similar underlying theme. Pressure groups and charities representing survivors of sexual abuse have called into question what the Archbishop of Canterbury told me on last night's programme. If you were watching, you'll have seen that when I asked him about Prince Andrew and forgiveness, he said forgiveness really does matter and that the Prince was seeking to make amends, though many have asked today, how exactly? One charity we heard from said they felt let down by what the Archbishop had said.
This is the interview that's angered and upset some.
Forgiveness really does matter. I think we have become a very, very unforgiving society.
The Archbishop of Canterbury had been asked by ITV News whether we should forgive Prince Andrew. He later said he was making a broader point about becoming a more forgiving society. But he did say this about the Duke of York.
With Prince Andrew, that is a particular case. And I think we all have to step back a bit and wait to see what happens, and he's seeking to make amends, and I think that's a very good thing.
What we do know is that Prince Andrew was close friends with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Lisa Bloom represented some of paedophile Jeffrey Epstein's victims.
From the point of view of my clients, it's just the victims being swept under the rug and ignored. And it's very nice to say that somebody should be forgiven when you want to move on, but victims are still suffering. The victims of Jeffrey Epstein, the 8 of them who I represent, will be suffering from post-traumatic stress for the rest of their lives.
Prince Andrew's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, also convicted of sex offences, forced him to step down from public life. He paid millions to settle a sex abuse case brought by Virginia Giuffre with no admission of guilt. Some observers refused to accept the Archbishop wasn't including Prince Andrew when he spoke of forgiveness.
I'm afraid that I don't buy the spin. It was clearly him saying that we needed to be more forgiving, and that included and was within the context of Prince Andrew. And I disagree with that vehemently.
Others say the Archbishop missed the opportunity to mention Epstein's many victims.
He spoke about the church, forgiveness being at the heart of it. But surely the church also needs to support those who have suffered some horrendous things, and the fact that he didn't do it, I think, was remiss, to say the least.
The Archbishop of Canterbury says he was not referring specifically to the Duke when talking of forgiveness. Complex issues, he said, difficult to address in a short interview. Rebecca Barry, News at 10.
Well, Buckingham Palace has made sure the Prince Andrew scandal has been kept at arm's length for the Jubilee weekend. Harry and Meghan won't be front and centre either. They flew in this evening. The fact that around 12 million people will attend street parties in the next 4 days attests to the Queen's enduring popularity. But without wanting to rain on her parade as so many prepare to celebrate her reign, a new opinion poll suggests a noticeable drop in support for the monarchy as a whole since her Diamond Jubilee a decade ago, from 73% then to 62% now.
Released in the last few minutes to mark the beginning of this week's historic celebrations, the official Platinum Jubilee portrait of the Queen. Taken last month at Windsor Castle, it came with a message from the only British monarch ever to mark 70 years of reign. The Queen said, "I continue to be inspired by the goodwill shown to me and hope that the coming days will provide an opportunity to reflect on all that has been achieved during the last 70 years as we look to the future with confidence and enthusiasm." She signs her message, Elizabeth R. Tonight at Buckingham Palace, the final preparations. Here tomorrow, the Queen, all being well, will take the salute as Commander-in-Chief from her armed forces. She will have her family with her in a show of support after a turbulent couple of years. That family include the Sussexes. We do know that Prince Harry and Meghan have now arrived on the Windsor estate with their children, including their daughter Lilibet, named after the Queen. Prince Andrew, meanwhile, was spotted horse riding today. He is likely to be at Friday's service at St Paul's Cathedral, but unlikely to be at anything else. And the damage they have done to the monarchy's brand might explain an opinion poll showing a big fall in support since the Queen's Diamond Jubilee 10 years ago. In 2012, 73% said they were in favour of monarchy. At this Jubilee, support has fallen to 62%, whilst 1 in 5 said they would prefer an elected head of state. But the biggest fall in support has been among those aged 18 to 24. In 2012, 59% of young people were in favour of monarchy. Now it's much lower, 33%, roughly the same proportion as those who want the UK to become a republic. The Jubilee will therefore be a moment to refocus on the Queen, who we are told will set off the beacon lighting tomorrow night. The principal beacon this time is an unusual one, a tree made of trees lit by lights rather than flames.
It was felt that, you know, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee principal beacon should be a unique one, and because green is the future, we felt it was felt important to replicate it with this wonderful tree.
By the time we get to Sunday, the finale will be a 2-mile-long pageant, and the rehearsal today for that suggests it's going to be a great watch for the crowds along the route.
I don't think I have words to explain how excited I am to do this. I think it's such an incredible thing.
So from a scale from 1 to 10, I'd say infinity, because this is just such a huge opportunity.
And after the silver, golden and diamond jubilees, one tradition is being maintained for the platinum. They still do camping on the Mall, and why not?
And Chris is, as you'd expect, outside Buckingham Palace tonight. Look, Chris, hard to know how much to read into one poll, but I guess the results, particularly about young people, does suggest there'll be concerns for the royal family to address.
Yeah, absolutely right, Tom. You know, I've just taken a walk up the Mall tonight, and there's a real kind of electric atmosphere going on. Different nations and nationalities all looking forward to having something to celebrate, and boy, don't we need it after the last few years after the pandemic. And you might well say those who come to the Mall are going to be those who will support the monarchy, of course. But I think looking at that poll, you're right to say there's a particular problem there with young people. Roughly the same number, a third that support monarchy, a third that support a republic, and having an elected head of state. There's a lot for the monarchy to sort of chew over there, and I think when all this is sort of settled and we get to Sunday night, and let's hope there aren't any big dramas with any of the family between now and then, that is something they will need to address, not just in this reign, but also in the next reign when that day comes. You can probably see behind me at the moment, Tom, the Buckingham Palace is looking pretty spectacular. It's going to be the focus of national celebration over the next few days. The Queen is very good at bringing people together, and I think the Palace is hoping that will be the lasting effect of this historic Jubilee. We're probably not going to see one for some considerable time, and I think the nation's ready to celebrate that right now.
OK, Chris, thank you very much indeed. Now, more people hoping to use the long bank holiday weekend for a few days in the sun will be staying home after all. Another 150 flights were cancelled today, mostly by British Airways. Now, that was obviously not a good look for the industry when the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps met its leaders today. The stories of disappointed passengers were, Mr Shapps said, heartbreaking. The Airline Workers Union had one bit of advice: pack light. Hand luggage can't get lost or stuck on a cancelled plane.
These are the only postcards thousands of families will be sending this half-term, and they wish they weren't here. 4-year-old Alfie was at Doncaster Sheffield Airport, all set to go on a family holiday to Mallorca. But excitement morphed into disappointment as the family's TUI flight was delayed for a day and then finally cancelled.
Just felt flat, and then I thought, we've got to tell my little girl and my boy that we're not going on holiday. That's why you work all year. There was so many disappointments. There were kids crying everywhere. There were just families having to tell their kids that they weren't going, and there was adults nearly in tears. I mean, I nearly cried when I saw Daisy was in tears. It was just not good.
The government's blamed scenes like these at Heathrow on airlines, the Transport Secretary claiming operators have seriously oversold more flights and holidays than they're able to deliver.
Fundamentally, Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary, has been counselling and engaging and warning the travel sector for some time that they need to hire the staff to deal with that resurgent demand. So it is squarely the responsibility for those businesses to look after their customers.
But today the boss of Ryanair hit back, blaming the lasting impact of COVID uncertainty and recruitment difficulties he says are caused by Brexit.
The challenge for the airlines and also for the airports continues to be the recruitment and training of staff, particularly post-Brexit, where you can't bring in lots of Europeans, and it is very difficult to recruit and train staff at the airports and for the airlines in the UK, where you are limited only to UK citizens.
And with Gatwick Airport and EasyJet experiencing more flight cancellations than anywhere else in the country, these customers were venting their frustration from the terminal floor.
No, we're about to board the plane and someone shouted out that the flight was cancelled. There was no communication, we didn't know and understand what to do next, how to get our baggage back.
EasyJet say the cancellations are necessary to provide a reliable service. But while the blame game continues, there are warnings it could be months before the travel industry is ready to handle the surge in demand. A stress-free summer break could be off the cards too. Hannah Miller, News at 10.
The Prime Minister insisted today it would not be responsible of him to resign now over the Downing Street parties, what with the war in Ukraine, the economic pressures, an agenda he still wanted to deliver. In an interview with the parenting website Mumsnet, a question about his future prompted this reply.
I thought about all these questions a lot, as you can imagine, and I just cannot see how actually it would be responsible right now, given everything that is going on, simply to abandon the project on which I embarked.
As Russian forces blast their way inch by bloody inch into eastern Ukraine, yet more modern military hardware has been promised to the Ukrainians by the United States and indeed Germany too. But as Russia takes territory, Ukrainian forces are taking some back. One such recaptured town is Velkia Novosilka, where the Russian enemy is just 2 miles away. The soldiers we filmed with say they have plenty of fighting spirit, but insufficient weapons.
We hear them before we see them. Ukrainian pilots confident enough to fly their attack helicopters, but rarely do they dare to peek above the treetops. They're heading in the same direction that we are, towards a village destroyed by Russian forces, pushed out in the last week. This is the road on which Russian troops were pushed back, and it's the road along which they may well return. They're still 2 miles away, and the Ukrainians say, although they have all the spirit to launch a counteroffensive, they don't yet have the weapons. These are the soldiers who now control the village, where fighting was fierce and where friendships were formed. Among this group, huddled together, is 21-year-old Dima. Just as he's discussing what might happen next, a call comes in warning that Russian fighter jets might be approaching.
Now they say 4 airplane maybe to us.
Inside their makeshift base, home and office, where men talk of their second lives back home as they live what's become their first. For Dima, that was in Dnipro with his 7-year-old brother, who he wrote to on the night of the invasion, telling him he was going to war.
I tell him about he must be a man. He must be a humanity. He must love our mother and respect women. He must be strong.
He says he now has many brothers, and in their underground bunker they're using their phones as weapons to fight a hybrid war.
Every evening we call in Russia random people and speak with him.
You try to tell them that?
We try tell about we are not Nazi.
Nazar is his closest friend, the only survivor when an armoured vehicle was blown up. Shrapnel is still lodged in his neck.
He have 9 life, but 4 he spent.
Right.
He have
he has 5 left. Here is how their main fighters fought. These pictures filmed by a camera on Dima's helmet. Bullets flying, soldiers advancing behind an armoured vehicle. But the Ukrainian army isn't always advancing, and here they're struggling to break the stalemate. Front lines have ebbed and flowed, and friendships too, in a war where even victors will lose so much. Rohit Kaptru, News at 10, Southeast Ukraine.
Back here, the West Ham footballer Kurt Zouma found out his punishment today for drop-kicking his family's pet cat across the kitchen floor. There were boos outside court after he was given his sentence. He has to do 180 hours of community service, and you won't be entirely surprised to know he's been banned from having another cat for at least 5 years. The judge said what he'd done was disgraceful and reprehensible. Finally, no football fans ever want their team to lose, of course. Certainly Scotland's didn't when they played their World Cup qualifier tonight. But if they were to go out of the competition, better perhaps that it was to Ukraine, who have dreams of their own. Not just about making history, but of lifting their country and rallying their troops against those Russian invaders. At the final whistle, it was Ukrainian resistance that had triumphed on the pitch.
The home crowd poured into Hampden this evening as kick-off loomed. The happy atmosphere replicated by the Ukrainian supporters. And they wanted to win for their country.
It means from one hand we can defend our country, and from other hand we still can succeed.
My fiance is in the east right now, and I supporting my people here, so I think we will win. We together will win.
For the Scots, this was a chance to edge closer to qualifying for their first World Cup in 24 years.
All political sides are apart. Here we go.
Whistle, whistle, football.
But everybody's hearts go out to them, but at the end of the day, it's a football match, and I think all the gloves are off.
Inside, emotions ran high as the Ukraine team entered draped in their country's flag and sang their hearts out. The roar of Flower of Scotland closely followed, proving the Scots mean business.
Uninspired by Jennifer.
But the Ukraine, the first Ukraine goal scored in a competitive match since the war began.
Lord is winning them to make it to the World Cup.
With 10 minutes to go, Ukraine's goalkeeper gifted Scotland a chance, and Callum McGregor took it just.
Yes, it did!
It was an anxious wait for the visitors as the clock ran the kick of the game. Well, the Scots World Cup dreams have come to a disappointing end. Scotland really outplayed here tonight at Hampden. Even a packed-out home crowd couldn't help. Ukraine, on the other hand, fighting from the start to the end. They wanted to raise the spirits of their home nation, and that they did. Despite Scotland hoping to reach the next stage, they didn't want to put Ukraine out. Now, all eyes turn to Wales, who could be the team to do so this Sunday.
All right, that is sadly all we have time for tonight. So good night. Thank you very much for watching and have a brilliant Jubilee weekend.